Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Retro Encounter, that podcast where we talk about things that are neither random nor rhythm. I am Peter Triezenberg, the boards. Joining me today is Caitlin Argyros.
Hey guys, Lynn Casero on the boards.
Stephanie Sybydlo.
Hi.
And making a return from the land of the rising sun to the land of California, Stephen Meyerink.
Hello.
All right, so
It's me. I'm old like Regis because I used magic.
Old Stab.
Old Steb. Yeah, this is Steb Gear Solid 5, 4, in which I am inexplicably old and smoke cigarettes on the loading screens.
And they tried to replace you with what's his face? Snake Plissken. I don't know. I'm blanking.
The
Kurt
guy
Russell.
from 24 who slept through the role.
Kurt Russell.
Jack Bauer.
Jack Bauer, that's it. Yeah, I can't remember his real name, but we
God,
can't curse.
Kiefer.
His dad's
Kiefer
much cooler,
Sutherland.
man.
He's actually good on a syndicated TV show, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, well, apparently Kiefer Sutherland was really expensive, but that's neither here nor there. But that might
Also was
actually
finishing the game, I guess, but
that might actually tie in a little bit to what we're here to talk about today, because we're here to discuss Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15. And for those of you at home who may not have been paying attention, Kingsglaive is the CG film that sets up Final Fantasy 15, the long-awaited game. It, along with Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15, the animated shorts, are kind of our first exposure to the 15 game shows up. So we all have some varied opinions on it, some specific likes and dislikes we want to get into, and we're here to present them for you. So I guess just to get the ball rolling, I thought we could go around and ask everybody, just in general, what are your thoughts on this film? Do you like or dislike it? What are some strengths, some weaknesses? I guess just because you're first on my screen, Caitlin, could you think you could start us off?
Oh, can I start us off? Thank you.
Oh, you've been waiting for this.
I have. My claws are bared, folks. Okay, so in general...
your claws are bears?
Bared.
Bears!
As in they're out and ready to dig into this movie. So
Very fabulous podcast.
in general, my broad thoughts are that this movie frustrates me because there are some really good bones in the film. I think the underlying plot, once you figure out what's going on, had a lot of potential, and it really could have been a much more, cinematic kind of experience than other Final Fantasy movies that we will probably mention later on. But it's frustrating because so many other things, the writing, the voice acting, the editing, the shot editing, and
the editing.
the treatment of the female characters, which we will also get into, just kind of weigh it down. So it's frustrating because I can see the thought that went into this film, and I can see how it's setting its stage and how it's going to affect things for the game. And it does make me interested in the world and the game, but it's just...
See, I think that... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's messy. It's not a slam dunk. It's got problems.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I have a lot of issues with it too. I find that it does succeed in getting me interested in the world, which I think is good, but I think that's a hard sell for a film. Because it is very much, nothing is really resolved. It builds up to a prequel for the game. And that's what it is. It ends with actual footage from the game of the guys driving their car right before it breaks down, which is where the game opens. And I appreciate all that. And I think there's a lot of interesting imagery, and in terms of art design, things are very good. And it definitely, you get a sense of that weird, all the preview, the game, outlets have the game now, and a lot of the previews have discussed that the game is really weird in terms of like its tone, and they use the weird in a good way, in that it's unusual. You have like flans running around in caves below, you know, Western gas stations and stuff, just weird stuff like that. And that shows in the movie, because you have like, hey, we're in an airship. All of a sudden, Ultros is on the airship. Where was he on the airship? How did he get there? Those questions are not what this movie's interested in. It's interested in, let's set up. Its entire character arc is to set up someone else's character arc. In other words, everything in this, to me, is a setup for something later. And that makes for an interesting cutscene as a video game, but not a perfect movie.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, Steph.
Yeah, I basically feel the same. It feels like a tie-in to something much, much more. So it's incomplete, and it's really hard to be completely invested into a prologue. Basically, I really like how you said that, actually. It's hard to really get into it when it's obviously just setting up someone else's big main plot.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it feels like it's the same problem Marvel films had until, I would say, post Thor 2, in that they realized that these things can't be zero sum for them to be of interest and to be worth watching. If the only thing is I'm going to watch Tony Stark fly around, shoot a bad guy, and then end and nothing has happened, that's not interesting for anything other than the visual spectacle, and that only works once. That's why I think Advent Children, I loved it the first time I saw it, but then it has diminishing returns, because after a while it's just like, okay, Cloud jumped around in trees and it was awesome and the music was cool, but I've seen it already and the plot is sort of anemic. Here, I think they had a plot, but they were so afraid to spoil anything from the game other than, here's the ring, and here is clearly going to be the bad guy, Ravus. I've decided, Peter and I talked about this before too, and we can get to this later. But like, there was like, I had some debate, but when I saw it in theaters in Japan, I had some debate as to whether I thought Arden or the Imperial Chancellor or Ravus was going to be the main villain. And watching the movie, the way the movie doesn't even use him that much, just has him get his, full spoilers, he gets his arm burned off by the ring, which he wants so desperately. And Arden clearly has machinations, but between the silver hair, the fact that he looks like Sephiroth 8, what's his name from Final Fantasy 12, I think Ravus is undoubtedly the bad guy, because he's going to hate Noctis because Noctis's family ring took his. I can practically see the story writing itself in front of me. But the problem is that they avoid anything of consequence happening in this movie, because the net result of this movie is we know everything that happens at the end of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit a really important point on that one, Stephen. For me personally, I enjoy an enjoyable film. The first time I watched it, I was a little confused. And upon rewatching it, I believe my problems with it largely stem from that. It does not stand on its own, as we've said. And the second half of the film is when it starts to really double down on setting up the game at the expense of its own plot.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
The characters that are introduced in this movie are purely there to move the story forward. It kind of
brings you to an important point, though, is then, if it couldn't stand really well on its own, what was the point?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is how Caitlin said earlier, that this movie has a really strong foundation. Yeah. And I agree with that 100%. I think that the core of this movie is going back, a lot of the stuff that we see in Kingsglaive is actually stuff that was in trailers for Versus 13, or way back in the day when this game was first announced as Versus 13, and then was in not development for a while, and then got relaunched as this totally new thing.
Yeah, well, they actually talked about that. It literally is all of that footage that was originally going to be the intro of the game, and then it sounded like it came down to two things, which is one, they wanted Insomnia to be like a cinematic scripted sequence in the game, which I'm guessing is the finale. Or, I don't know, apparently the game takes place over 10 years, so maybe it's not the finale. It's probably a set-piece moment.
Mm-hmm.
But, so it is essentially the CGI intro to a game. And I think the part of it that I think makes the best actual movie is Nyx's story arc, which I'm willing to bet is the only part that didn't exist when it was part of the game.
Yeah. No.
So the only part that was created to be a movie, Nyx has a complete arc, and I actually find Nyx to be a likable character, even though he's another generic white dude who shows up to save the day and rescues Luna 50 times and, you know, knows more than everything else, and gets a cool fight sequence. But, like, the problem is that Nyx's story happens and goes in the midst of a plot that he is of no consequence to.
Exactly.
Like the movie even tells you, like, the Empire had planned on leaving. So basically, Insomnia gets wrecked anyway. He just kills the general guy who also got invented for the movie. And then you bounce. So again, it goes back to that zero-sum thing of it's a plot line. It's a short story within a setup for a world plot.
Can I just say, quick aside, that every time they say that general's name, Glauca, I think they're going to call him General Glaucoma.
General Glaucoma.
General Glaucoma.
I cannot stop that thought, and it makes me laugh whenever I see him.
What I find amusing about him is that they have to introduce him in every scene. Like, in the very first scene, that really awesome flashback to Noctis's childhood, which I think that's a really effective scene. That for those first 3 minutes, I think, are quite good.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great introduction.
Yeah, I love it. It sets up all the major motivations. You see, like, you can kind of get who everyone is. The music is great. That's one of the tracks that Shimomura composed.
Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing is that 3-minute intro, more plot happens in that than in the next 45 minutes. Like, it's clear that they've taken a story and they've, like, all right, here's all the material. All right, let's stretch it out and make it look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
But in that scene, they have to say General Glauca's name. In the scene where Luna gets kidnapped by him, she has to introduce General Glauca again. And then when he shows up to kill King Sean Bean, then they have to introduce him again. And then it turns out that's not even his real name.
Yeah, and like they also don't tell you anything about him. Like, where did his powers come from? Why is he so strong that he can punch gods when he's a mook villain who gets killed by nothing?
Which is why when the plot twist about him happened, which is the twist being that he actually has been the leader of the Kingsglaive for the past decade, I happened on the first viewing until his armor melted off, and I'm like,
well,
what?
I think I actually disagree with you on this. I actually thought that was one of the few inspired turns in the plot, because they spend the whole movie setting up that you have this Empire thing going on, and that from the video game standpoint, obviously we like Insomnia because we play as the Prince of Insomnia, and they're the lone holdout against the Empire. They are the Avalanche versus Shinra. But then you have this whole movie telling you it's like, actually, we all, like, don't have to be in this war. We're all just refugees and stuff. And, you know, you have these refugees who, if you think about it from a political standpoint, which is the perspective you take for most of this movie and all of Noctis's story, is like, how does this affect Insomnia and the world politically? Like, Noctis is getting married for political reasons. Regis sends his son away for political reasons, even though it looks like he's just trying to protect him. So from that perspective, I really liked that the movie explored, hey, why the hell did our king just send his only son away with our only salvation to not get murdered when he knew this was going to happen? Like, that, like, from, like, if that were a political thing, you'd have WikiLeaks dumping Regis's emails on that. Like,
I would agree with you on that if they got into more detail about what that purpose actually was. Like, if they talked more about what is Luna's significance, why is it so important that they get married, or even what is Noctis's purpose? And like you said, they're afraid of spoiling anything in the game, and to a certain extent that makes sense, but it comes at the expense of the movie's own story.
I agree. I think it doesn't work for me because I also think these products don't exist in a vacuum. People who watch Kingsglaive, I feel like, are pretty likely to have followed the development of 15 in some form. And they have said multiple times that the plot line of the game involves the Plague of the Stars and, like, the sunlight slowly going out. And Luna can speak to the Archeans, so can Noctis apparently, or at least can summon them. So it's like, I feel like it's sort of disrespecting the audience's intelligence to be like, well, there's a very important thing I sent her off for that I'm not going to talk about in this film before I get murdered because I'm Sean Bean and everyone called it.
I won't lie, you just like I've been on a pretty big media blockout, so everything you just told me was new. I was like, oh my god.
Okay. Well, so it's like back of box type stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're treating it like.
I'd like to think I represent that player who was really, really interested from the get-go, but right now I'm just kind of waiting it out, and when it's out, it's out.
Oh, that's a good perspective to have. Like I didn't realize that. But yeah, like so I think it's like back of box type stuff that they're going to allude to. But I feel like don't treat this movie as like Brotherhood does not reveal anything substantive about the plot of the game. It's just relationships. I feel like if you're going to have an hour and a half long movie, you need to be willing to give up some of the plot. So we feel like we're getting invested and not just being given an hour and a half long teaser, because that's what the movie is.
It'd be good if you dropped one juicy bit of information that's completely done.
Like, we all know that it's going to turn into something with the Archeans, and Arden is trying to control the Archeans or something and bring about the plot, the stars or something bad like that. So why not have Regis before his dying moments be like, Luna has to stay alive, because if she doesn't, the world is going to end. So that's why I said knock this away. Like, Nyx is pissed at him because he thinks he's given up his kingdom. Just be like, yeah, Nyx, no, trust me, I have a plan here.
Well, and the funny thing is that later on in the movie, he seems to be totally get what Luna's thing is, even though they never say it in the movie. So I'm just like, did she tell you off screen?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. There's a bunch of stuff that happens off screen in this movie.
There's a ton of... So let's get into some of those specific gripes. We mentioned the editing. Caitlin, you want to elaborate?
Yeah.
Not having the ring on and then having the ring on and combusting.
There's problems. There's specific issues with the shot editing. That is how things transition from one shot to another, especially in the action sequences. The camera will move to a place where you weren't expecting it to go, and so you have to reorient yourself a lot. Oh, like he's on this side, now he's on that side, and the shots happen super fast. Like the analogy I want to make is if you ever saw the second Daniel Craig James Bond film, Quantum of Solace,
known as Angry Bond.
Yeah, Jason Bourne Bond.
Well, I think the entire film, but especially the opening sequences of that film, got really heavily lambasted by critics because the editing was so rough and fast, and it was difficult to follow. It's like that, especially in the super heavy action sequences at the start and the end of the film. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not that it's impossible to follow. It's not like Transformers levels of I can't see anything going on here because there's just crap in my way. But it's also kind of it's hard to really get into it because I'm struggling to just understand the plot, the pacing of each shot.
I think that final action sequence comes close to Transformers levels of
it does.
Very busy.
And to be fair, I think once I found out that final fight is supposed to be Knights of the Round fighting Diamond Weapon, I became a whole lot more into it.
Yeah, I didn't click with it right away. I think the designs were just way too dark, and it took me a while for me to kind of snap into it.
But that's the thing. It's too dark, they move too quickly, and there is, like, sparks flying everywhere. And it's like, this is madness, and it would be awesome if I could tell what was going on.
You know,
so I'm going to have to odd man out here. I liked the final fight sequence. I thought it was one of the better sequences in the movie. On a rewatch, it's very Advent Children and like, all right, get through it. Like nothing happens.
They're even running on buildings.
I think
they're running on buildings. You have the sparks. There's even the sequence where they're both inside a building where the walls shift and they're fighting from wall to wall on each other. I definitely agree with the editing to a point. I think it works pretty well in some places, and in other places, I just think, for me, when I think editing, I think of the first 45 minutes and how it jumps around so much that I feel like if you have not closely followed the game and like followed all of the promotional material for what's happening, it's like, who's that? Why did he do that? What's going on? Why is he upset? Why are they mad? What happened? Why'd she die? How'd she die? And like they confuse their visual language. Like I think the best thing is that they show the lady that gets killed. I forgot her name. Crow gets killed.
R.I.P.
And they show a van coming up and they play audio that sounds like a swarm of insects coming. And then when those guys find her, they find her hand covered in insects. So I'm like, oh, she got killed by like some kind of evil curse guy with insects. But then it's just like, no, yeah, she's in there, and like, we don't know how she died. And it's like, oh, well, all right, I guess I thought
like
And
they
it
didn't.
was just, she got shot.
Oh.
well, yeah, well, it was General Glauca that killed her. Like he said that he killed her.
No, it wasn't.
What?
That's
Oh, it wasn't. Okay,
It
yeah.
was-
See,
I don't know
So-
who killed her.
So
Yeah, I don't
right
know either.
before, right before General Glauca / Captain Drautos / giant armor dude shows up, Luce or whatever his name is, the guy with like comes up, shoots Nick. Like, I'm amazed you can still move with that bullet inside you, because all Crow could do was scream. And I'm like, I
Oh,
thought you died off. I
right.
thought you died in
right.
the Ultros fight.
yeah. We also have to point out a little bit of torturing women's bodies in there too, because why not?
Yes.
Oh,
Um,
on a couple occasions.
But I will say one thing I heard you guys say this. I do disagree with this. One of the few shots I did like, because it respected our ability to remember what we'd seen. The second time they show somebody get killed by the ring, we see Ravis do it, and it burns his arm off, and we get a full shot. I actually like the shot where it cuts away from him holding the ring, and she's like, "You should probably not wear that. It gives power." And then it cuts away, and it comes back, and he's already on fire, because we know he's an idiot, and he know he did it. I don't think it was necessary to show him put the ring on there, because at that point, we understand what the ring does to those who aren't worthy. We understand Luna is clearly baiting him into putting it on, which is sinister as hell.
It's the only thing she does in the movie.
Like, her only thing is she tricks somebody into putting a ring on that incinerates them. I didn't think that was a problem with editing, but that we could chalk that one up a taste, because I do agree that the editing is very spastic.
They overuse the fade to black a lot.
Oh
It's like,
God, yes.
especially near the beginning, it's like they didn't know how to edit these scenes together.
In the
so they
middle
just
of an
fade to
action
black.
sequence, it's not done, and we fade to black. What the f?
So Stephen may remember that when I first watched Kingsglaive, I was messaging him during the entire thing, being very, very confused during the first action sequence, because I thought that Crow was summoning Diamond Weapon, and the reason that I thought that
thing, wasn't it?
well, because there are two reasons I thought this. One is because in Type 0, which is no longer part. I know 15 is no longer part of the Fabula Nova Chrysalis, whatever. But I have a hard time divorcing the two in my head. In Type 0, they had like squadrons of summoners that like would mass commit suicide to summon Eidolons, which was gnarly as hell. And the image of Crow and a line of spellcasters trying to do something kind of reminded me of that. But two, during the scene where they're trying to run away from it, in that first action sequence, the editing is so bad that it makes it look like she's leading it on, like it's following her. Like, and I don't know why, for some reason it just got stuck in my head that she was guiding it somehow, and that was going to be important. And
I don't think they explained anything in that, like how any of the magic works or anything like that. They just kind of roll with it.
It's just like, there's a fire tornado, and now the Niflheim guys have brought in a giant demon. What's a demon? What's important about this thing? Well, it just blew up everything.
There's an interesting lack of exposition in a prologue.
It inexplicably had Cerberus with it because of reasons.
Yeah, and I thought Cerberus was the demon they were talking about, but no, it was the Diamond Weapon, and Cerberus is just kind of there.
It's just the guard dog, which is fitting, but still, come on.
And I'll admit, part of me that, like, I mean, is a huge, ridiculous Final Fantasy fan is just like, oh yeah, Cerberus is in a movie, woo!
That's the point. That's why I didn't mind it all. It's just like, it's for the fans.
I think the most interesting thing to me about the film, aside from the political plot that's going on here, the whole thing with this basically false truce by Niflheim in order to infiltrate Insomnia and steal the crystal. I think the most interesting thing is the way they kind of explain a little bit about the ring and the power of the Lucii. Is it Lucii or Lucii?
Lucii?
Lucii, yeah, Lucii. And how the Kingsglaive are borrowing that power. Because, I mean, if you've seen any of Noctis's moves from the game, the Kingsglaive, they're basically doing what Noctis does. They throw a weapon and then they can port to it and all those awesome things. And you see Regis being able to summon multiple weapons like Noctis. And it gets me interested in learning more about the history of this power, this ring, and what we're going to see happen with Noctis in 15.
Yeah, it gets away from, I think, something that is a big danger with a lot of anime and a lot of anime-inspired features like this one, in that sometimes it's clear that it was designed because holy, wow, swear jar. Holy moly, this looks cool. Let's go write a BS plot excuse for it. And that might have happened here because he's had the thing for a while. But it makes the power feel like something that exists in the world with a set of rules, in that Noctis does Warp Blade. His father can do Warp Blade. It makes you age fast. That's why they have magic. And they can give pieces of the magic. And all that magic comes... Like, it sets up a hierarchy for why this power exists in a world that has emboobened Daisy Duke running around fixing cars.
So that sounds like a transition to me, but
Old habits, I guess.
Oh boy.
Oh no, it's a good one. So
Actually, wait, before we get into that, I just wanted to talk something quickly. When you mentioned the whole teleportation thing, I actually like how they made that feel. Like, you felt a kind of good gravity to it.
Yeah.
Like, I did like a lot of the fighting in this because it did feel still kind of heavy, whereas in, Advent Children, they just kind of flew around.
Oh yeah, stuff
it didn't feel like it had any weight. And like, if you've watched footage from the final version of the game too, like, they use the same sound effect when Noctis warps as when they do in the film, so it gives you a nice bit of continuity. Yeah. But like, Noctis, when he warps too, I noticed that one of the things they changed in the final release is that, like, it has a lot of weight when he uses the warp blade. It's like, and like, it really feels like you're throwing a sword and teleporting to it.
Yeah, he kind of falls with it right away. But also too, I also like at the beginning when they show somebody who screws up doing the warp blade, where they kind of crash into the ground
and they blow up.
It kind of creates like a bit of a shattering effect as well. Like the magic, Regis used the shield spell a few times, and you kind of feel like the kind of gravity of each hit that it takes, and when the shield starts to break. So I actually thought that felt really cool.
Yeah.
And the fact that it looks the same as the shield that's covering the city. Like, it all feels like their magic is very... Like, it feels like it all comes from the same source, which is, if you're going to tell a story about this one family that has this one pact with what I assume are the world's gods, it's cool to have that visual and that aesthetic distinction to it.
They remind me a lot of the Ocuria from 12.
I agree completely.
Yeah, that scene where they pop up is very similar to the Ocuria, I agree.
So, which, I mean, that is fitting because there are other elements of the game that remind me a lot of 12. I think Niflheim, in general, it reminds me a lot of Arcades from 12, and with their soldiers looking very judge-like with their armor. Even Glauca kind of reminds me of the Judge Magisters from 12 with his armor.
Yeah, Glauca would be right at home in Ivalice.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he looked like a combination of something from Kingdom Hearts meets someone from Ivalice.
Yeah, but then Vaughn would kill him with his ab beams. He fires it like Tony Stark's repulsor blast. He's just like, ab blast, and does that number.
Well, maybe.
And doesn't have nipples either.
Yeah,
well, you don't need nipples if you live in Ivalice.
I mean, when you wear a metal jacket, I think your nipples just kind of get, sawed off after a while.
If you wear a metal jacket, you're going to have much worse than nipple chafing, though.
But I think one thing we can pick up on, I think, or all agree on, is based on this, is that the movie's gorgeous and the visual design is fantastic.
Oh, God, yeah.
It is a audio-visual treat, and I think it's also the most cinematic of all the Final Fantasy movies. Like, if you told... There's only 3 of them, but if you told me to rank them, I would probably rank them in descending order from Kingsglaive.
Yeah, I think the part of it is that they hired an actual screenwriter to, like, give the film a 3-act structure that I think is almost too evident because they have 3 separate studios that animate each section as well.
Well, that could explain a lot.
Yeah, well, if you look in the credits, and like they've talked about it, like there are 3 different CGI studios that handle the opening sequence, the talkie flying around sequence, and then the blow up the entire city sequence.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
That is telling. Yeah, that explains why the movie those acts kind of vary wildly in terms of quality. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I do have some technical gripes. Namely that during the third act, there's like some bug-like enemies that look like unfinished models to me. Like they do not look good. And
there was definitely a quality between like the two main characters and, quote unquote, the NPCs of the film.
Oh god.
Yeah, all the scrubs were like, "Hey, we have one less rendering pass."
Like the resistance dudes that Libertas runs into.
They got like no folds in their clothes. They just kind of look like regular CG mooks.
Yeah, and then
it's like when you go in like a modern Final Fantasy, and it's like you're running around as Titus, who's like, "Yes, I have individually delicately modeled ribbons on each of my knee cover thing," and then you meet like one of the Xanarcan apes, and it's like, "I'm wearing a trash bag with a sack."
Even Nyx, I think Nyx has a relatively subdued design compared to other characters in braided mullet.
Yeah.
But even then,
be careful talking about braided mullets. I'm making haircut decisions. All right.
Okay. Well, you'll be good at cosplaying Aaron Paul in that case.
Actually, I do want to say something about that. Like, I know there's a lot of people who really love the designs of the movie and, who really oppose it. And it'll be weird going from Luna in the film to Luna in the game because they look nothing alike.
Yes.
But I actually really like facial capture because it kind of gives them, they're still very pretty cast, but I mean, they're just a bit flawed. And I find they look a lot more different because of facial capture.
I think
everyone's got their nuanced look to them. They actually have wrinkles in places.
I think that's especially evident on Regis. I agree completely.
Yeah, like Luna looks like I love the way Luna looks in the game, but she looks almost too perfect. She looks unreal. She looks CG, whereas them using a human capture, the Luna in the movie, she actually still has a bit of a, kind of a bit of a bigger nose or, interesting set eyes.
She looks older in the movie than she does in the game.
She does. And sounds too, which
yeah, do we want to talk about the celebrity voice acting?
I don't think
Lena
Heady's voice suits Luna.
No.
I don't think I'm as sour on it as you all are. I think Lena Heady was the worst performance by far because she's played, the what's her nuts in Game of Thrones.
Cersei.
She was Cersei Lannister. She's the villain in Dread 2012 where she literally like chomps a dude's privates off.
I just think that that tough voice does not suit Luna's character because no matter what Square Enix tells us, we could say we haven't played the game yet, but the way you depict a character in a film and in all promotional material matters. Luna is not a character who is doing the things that like Cersei Lannister is doing. Maybe she is, but doesn't seem like that's the case.
And her game voice actor seems to suit her a lot better, I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like the other two. I thought Aaron Paul did fine. I like his character. I thought his performance. He communicates exclusively in one-liners, but I thought I thought he was fine. And I honestly really am gonna miss King Sean Bean.
I am too.
I think King Sean Bean. I think that's going to be the most jarring one for me because Sean Bean has a really distinctive voice.
He does. And then,
I'm guessing we're only going to see him in flashbacks or when Noctis inevitably meets the magic gods and gets superpowers. But so maybe it won't be as noticeable. But like he's such a commanding voice, and he's so well suited to that character, which is that's clear that was intentional. That it's like, wow, it's going to be weird going back. I also thought Aaron Paul was great. The voice acting in the Japanese version actually, the movie is lip synced to the English dialogue. So when I saw it in Japanese, it was weird. It was like seeing a dub. And like it was sort of hard to tell whose voice was whose. And in particular, I thought Nyx's Japanese voice was sort of muted and understated. Whereas I think maybe it's because I've seen Breaking Bad. Maybe it's just because I think his performance was strong, but I actually think Aaron Paul was very well suited to Nyx.
I agree. Yeah, I thought he sounded good. I didn't really see him as the character in the show, but his voice still was distinct enough, maybe because I recognize him from the show.
Yeah.
I actually still found the lip syncing, even with the English, was still kind of off.
Yeah, Arden was
dude.
bad.
Yeah, like Libertas, it looks like whenever he talked, it's like his tongue was frozen. Like, oh my ass, what are you guys doing?
And the thing about that is that like some of the characters were voiced by their motion capture doubles. Libertas and Crow were.
Mm-hmm.
Libertas was the guy who got sad, right?
Libertas was the fat guy with the pill problem and the worst character in the film.
He was by far the worst voice in the movie.
Yeah.
and that was just his. But I'm pretty sure that was just his mocap guy, and the same thing with Crow, and a bunch of the other minor.
Fine.
She did fine. No,
She
too.
sounded familiar for some reason, but I don't recognize her voice actress's name.
I will say that I adore Arden.
Yeah.
His voice is like.
I liked his voice, but not his act.
I don't know. I thought he was fabulous.
Yeah, that like giant rubber wing thing. I did not know what that was. And
Yeah, that is awkward.
The
as hell.
one-winged angel stuff.
Yeah, it's because he's a villain and he has to have some weird creepy wing thing. He's like Kefka.
That hat is literally the worst hat. Peter, if you like that hat, burn it.
I actually like the hat more than the wing thing.
I feel like he's gonna take that hat and walk up to Noctis and be like, "My lord."
Yeah, or go fishing with it. I don't know. It was between like.
Yeah, to be fair, I do think he has the evil Kefka Chancellor thing going on well. I think he looks consistent. He looks like a dork, but have you guys seen the interview with the voice actors video where they show the actor playing Arden is clearly having more fun than literally everybody else because it's like, well, he's just so conniving and sneaky, and then he starts speaking in the character's voice.
Well, I've heard villains have the most fun when they're doing movies or whatever.
Yeah, like it's clear that he's having more fun. A, because he gets to be in the movie and in the game, so he has that continuity of like knowing what has happened.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you listen to and again, this is also the fault of the writing and the setup of the movie. Like, if you listen to the interview with Lena Heady, it's just like, yeah, well, Luna's a very strong character, and so that's why I like playing her, because she's a strong woman, and I think that's fun to play. And I'm like, yep, okay, moving on.
They paid her to say that.
Like, it's not her fault. Like, that's not her fault. That's the writing of that character. Like, what else is she going to say? Yeah, well, I get kidnapped about 4 times, and then my character is supposedly really important, but I'm never allowed to actually do anything for myself. And then every time I do, someone yells at me.
You really want to get into this conversation,
Oh, boy, yes.
Whenever we get into the conversation, just make sure at some point I can read my list. I'm very proud of it.
I will let you read the list, because I'm amazed you could count that many female characters in this universe. I guess before we move on, one last thing on voice acting. The Emperor is also I like Alder Capt. I think he's great. That scene where him and Sean Bean are playing off each other is pretty cool.
I want to punch his smug face.
The dialogue is super corny. Like the whole
What do you do with a thief?
But you know what? It's a JRPG tie-in movie. I can't really nitpick the writing too much.
See, I think you should nitpick the writing.
And we can nitpick the writing, but as far as like how that dialogue went, like I thought I was into it. It's like this is corny as heck, and I dig it.
I definitely think it worked. I think it's interesting. They've never shown the Emperor in the game. I've never seen his character model in the game.
No, never. This is probably the first time we've seen him outside of like old trailers that.
Yeah.
Anymore. Okay, so is it time to talk about female women? Am I right? Sorry.
All 2 of them in this movie.
Yeah. Okay.
No, there were more than 2 in the movie. They just died off screen to motivate one of the men.
So Luna sucks.
Well, let's start with Crow though, because.
Okay, Crow.
Yeah.
Crow seemed cool. I thought Crow was going to be really cool.
Yeah.
I thought Crow was going to be an ongoing character, and them saying, "No, look, we do have interesting women in our storyline." And then they were like, "No, actually, we're going to kill her off screen to motivate one of the other dudes."
Yeah.
I kind of thought they wanted to. I hate to go this route, but I thought they wanted to kill her off because animating her hair was a pain in the ass.
She did have fabulous hair.
But like, there was a scene at the beginning where like there's a ton of wind, and like I feel like her hair didn't really know which way to blow, and it just looks really, really weird. So I just thought they wanted to like stop rendering her hair and just shove her away and just get Luna.
Yeah, she needs to get a buzz cut or a hat. Or we're gonna kill her. That's the only options.
Yeah, her hair totally glitched during the movie. It looked awkward.
But I mean,
wasn't moving.
Unfortunately, her ultimate role is to be the fridged woman trope. That is the sum total of her contribution to the film, and the off-screen fridged woman trope, which is even worse.
Like, she doesn't even get the dignity of like a final sequence. Like, she's always incidental to scenes where she's supposedly pivotal. basically my issue, and I said this to Caitlin and Mike, co-host of Rhythm Encounter and host of Rhythm Encounter.
In reverse order.
In reverse order, yes. After I saw it in Japan, was that the movie made me interested in the world, but it also made me absolutely certain that they do not know what they're doing with the women in their world. And in part, it's because every single woman in the world, and like I read a lot of complaints online that it's like, well, they had a Final Fantasy with all girls. Yes, but there were men with agency in that world. The bad guy was a guy. Like, you had the different groups of people that were working, and the women in that game had agency. Like, they were doing things in the story that weren't just to motivate somebody else. Whereas in Final Fantasy 15, between the game and the movie, you have the sexy mechanic, you have the Luna's sexy attendant who doesn't age, even though all of the men age when they have magical powers. So she doesn't age because we can't have an old woman on screen. You have sexy dragoon with boob window. You have the crow who dies so that way Libertas can be sad. You have Ravis's mother who dies to motivate him to become the ultimate supervillain. You have Gladiolus's little sister who has a crush on Noctis and who gets lost and to motivate Noctis to be a nice guy and save and make Noctis and Gladio become friends. You have Nyx's little sister who dies off screen, and literally you just get an audio clip of like, Nyx, no! So that way you know why Nyx wants to save Luna. And then you have Luna, who's like, her duty is to protect a guy no matter what. She gets corrected by every single man that speaks to her in the entire movie. She gets kidnapped twice and used as a political pawn twice in the movie and gets pimp slapped in the trailer. And then they're like, well, she's such a strong character.
And it's like, what does she do?
She does nothing. She does nothing.
And
that's
She looks pretty.
That's the thing is, like, you know, I think it's very telling. You had that one developer who was like, well, people say they want female party members, but then they or what was the thing?
It was the thing where it's like people, I don't even know, where it was like they were talking about like female party members in the game and how they wanted to focus on the story of brotherhood and the men working together. And
no, sorry, what I was thinking of is in regards to Cindy. Yeah, people said Cindy was too sexualized, and they said they want female party members, but then they say the women are too sexy. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, you have a critical problem.
Oh, it gets worse, actually. I watched the special features for Kingsglaive before we recorded this, and there's a section on animating it, which is interesting, but their only defining section on animating Luna was that they put her in different outfits.
So she was literally a Barbie doll.
They were literally just like, we wanted to show Luna is a multifaceted character, so we put her in lots of different outfits throughout the film. And I'm just like, raise his hand, guys.
Well, I know the internet loves to be like, to roll their eyes whenever feminism or male gaze comes up, but like, this game is like the ultimate definition of male gaze. It's developed by mostly men. It stars all men, and every single woman exists to further the male's plot or to look attractive. Like, I think where I snapped was when they talked in that one Famitsu interview about Luna's like attendant, who's in the movie for, I think Steph, you said she had a line where they say, oh yeah, she doesn't age though. And I'm like, okay, so everyone else who uses the crystal has to get old and look grizzled. And part of the plot is watching Noctis get old and grizzled by using magic. But the one woman who uses magic doesn't get old because, well, there's a good plot reason. Yeah, the plot reason is you want to have attractive women to look at. And you want to define attractive women as young and looking like this.
I think the other thing that concerns me is when they talk about Luna and Noctis's relationship, and they talk about how, well, it's not a traditional love story. Luna is driven by her need to protect Noctis, and that somehow makes it better? I don't know.
It's like Luna's driven by her need to protect Noctis because the only thing a female character in this world can be is mothering or motivational.
Yeah, and I'm really scared for her in the game because she says several times in the movie that she is prepared to die to fulfill her duty. And my warning bells are going off in my head. That sounds like foreshadowing.
That sounds like Aerith.
Yeah, I'm really scared about that because if that will be like well, actually, I'm sorry. The last straw really has already been thrown down, but I'm gonna completely lose it if anything like that happens, because
And honestly, I feel like, I mean, she jumps out of a moving plane for no reason and gets saved by Nyx, incidentally.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Are
going to be
you
her cool
kidding
moment.
me? Princess.
I thought that was going to be her cool moment. I thought she was going to summon Levi. Hi, I can do things. And instead, Nyx is just like, teleport, snarky quip, move on as though nothing happened.
Excuse me, princess.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was
literally what he said.
like that was another thing where they're like Luna is such a strong character, and I'm saying in that British voice because I'm thinking of Lena Heady saying it, and like every time Luna does something, it annoys Nyx, and he yells at her for it. Like up till the end of the movie, and then like when she jumps out of the plane, he's just like, "Oh, throws off our plan." So it's like she's never portrayed as being the one driving the scene. Like it's always like, "Oh, well, now Nyx has to go help her," or "Now this has to happen," and it's always like, you know, it's just they don't.
Support mission.
Yeah, she's literally a human escort mission / she's literally the human MacGuffin. Like every single scene revolves around somebody protecting her or getting her somewhere.
And there's one thing that confuses me even after rewatching it, and it's something that I hope will be addressed in the game, but I'm not entirely sure by now, is what Luna's significance is, why the Empire wants her and Noctis to hook up. Because they say that that they're using their marriage as an olive branch to get peace, and you're just sitting there the whole time like, that can't be right, that can't be it. But then again, they put her on the plane, on the airship, and when they go to get her, she's actually there, and then Ultros shows up and starts killing everybody. So it's like, did you intend for her to die there? Because
what's your actual end game here?
When I was watching that scene with a friend, what he thought was happening was that they put the hairpin tracking device on the ship, and that Luna was actually safe somewhere else. And I'm like, yeah, that would have actually been really smart if they had a use for her. But it doesn't seem like they do. It seems like the Empire really was just about to be like, your job is to lure out the Kingsglaive.
Bye, Felicia.
Well, I mean, this whole thing is about them infiltrating Insomnia so that they can steal the crystal and obviously kill Regis. And I think, at least that my initial thought is that this whole marriage plot is a sham so that they can ensure that they're both in one place to be assassinated.
Yeah, I think that.
Like that. I mean, like
I got as well.
Yeah, because Regis talks about sending Noctis away, and it seems that the film presents it as being unexpected. He was expected to be in Insomnia to receive Luna, and they were, I guess, going to probably get married then. And it sounds
they were going to red
like
wedding them.
Yeah, it sounds like Regis knew, anticipated this and sent Noctis away to ensure that at least someone from the royal family of Insomnia survives, and then he has to ensure that Luna gets out of there so that she survives. So
yeah,
okay,
that's what I thought as well. Like that, Regis' sacrifice is basically getting Noctis and Luna away because they're important.
Yeah,
and I can see all that. I just always assumed that there was something to do with the Archaeans or whatever that was significant about Noctis and Luna that I thought Arden specifically wanted to manipulate. And again, this is maybe another case of I have an idea stuck in my head that I don't want to let go of. But I just feel like they would have been better suited, like using the hairpin on the airship and having Luna be elsewhere. But if they really were just going to kill her off, then why not release the giant?
My guess, if that's not their plan, my guess was that Arden. My guess is that they want Noctis and Luna together because Luna can talk to the Archaeans and Noctis can control them, apparently, once he punches their arm off or whatever he does. I don't know. Maybe he wants the power. I'm thinking it might be like FF9 where she negotiates with them. Noctis gets the powers and then they kill Noctis and take the powers of the Archaeans or something. Because it seems like the Emperor is just a bunch of, let's use a bad word again, just a bunch of mean old fogies who want to have lots of power.
Yeah, but can't Regis control the Archaeans?
Yeah, I guess so.
And they kill him.
Because old. He can't because old. I think.
Oh yeah, because old. Yeah, they need a younger person.
Okay.
It's like I cannot command the old wall anymore because I'm old.
In fact, Square Enix has a lot of planned obsolescence built into their characters. Like, the entire plot of Kingdom Hearts is because some old guy didn't want to be old.
I wonder if there's a message in there somewhere.
There's a Peter Pan somewhere in there.
Old people should let young people move on and take control. Strong cultural commentary there.
Lot to read into, eh?
But we like the movie, right, guys?
I did.
Like I said, it frustrates me. I'm glad that I rented it and did not buy it. But then again, I knew that I would feel that way, so I'm not necessarily disappointed.
I like to own things.
I think it was entertaining. Sorry, go ahead.
What to expect, and I enjoyed it all right. And I got nothing more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I enjoyed it all right as well.
The visual design, the look of everything, like I thought it looks literally like a modern day fantasy. Was a perfect success. I thought it looked good and it felt good. It just, the story was crap.
Yeah, that was sort of what I thought as well. I enjoyed it. It made me more excited for the game in some ways. It also made me double down on my philosophy of if you like something, you have to be willing to critique it, because there's so much to critique already in Final Fantasy 15, and it's not even out. And that's not even getting into gameplay. It's just in terms of how it frames its narrative. Like,
right.
And again, I vaguely recall when Third Birthday came out and totally butchered Ayabrea's character, that I'm starting to wonder, because it wasn't all pinned on Tabata. It was pinned on like the artist and the scenario writer. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Tabata has interesting gameplay ideas and doesn't know what to do with plots or women. And that's not just
Toriyama was on that script, and yeah.
But I think also the reverse of that is also true. Like, if anyone's worried that we're being overly harsh or negative, I mean, you can like something and still critique it. In fact, like Stephen is saying, you kind of have to do both. It doesn't necessarily mean that something sucks because it's problematic. It just means you need to recognize what's problematic and say, this worked, that didn't work.
If you can't critique what you like, then you don't really like it. Like, I don't spend this kind of effort thinking about stuff that I don't care about. I think about Michael Bay Transformers. They suck, they're garbage, they're terrible films, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't think about it. Like, I don't worry about why one of the robots peed on the other one with oil. I'm just like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not debating whether or not maybe in the next sequel there might be a reason for that. If you can't, you need to be able to critique the art you like, because otherwise it's not going to get better or interesting or change.
I just realized I didn't weigh in on Luna's role as a woman.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, I had a good point, though. I was just thinking, all I could think about throughout the movie was, do any of you guys watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I've seen chunks of it.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so they have a big debate one day about who's the looks, who's the muscle, and all that stuff. Right? So, who's the looks, who's the muscle, who's the wild card? So Brains is the Regis. He's the one who knows the whole plot ahead of time. Looks and muscle is Nyx, and the wild card is Libertas, who just kind of comes in with a good idea and he's there when you need him. And Luna is the useless chick, but she's there.
That's actually really fitting. I applaud.
Yeah, she's like the goal, but then you're like, why? Why?
Nope, she wasn't really that. She was there to stand there, be useless, and look kind of pretty doing it. And if she came in with a good line every now and then, that was a bonus.
It's true. It seems like the game is going to span a lot of time, because it's like 10 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And maybe Square is in an unenviable position of not wanting to give away their story. And maybe Luna does become really interesting and do cool stuff.
See, now my thing's... Sorry, Stephen.
No, go ahead. That was pretty much all I had.
I was going to say, my thing is that, and this was actually going to tie into the last point I wanted to bring up, which is that Tetsuya Nomura is not credited in this film anywhere. I checked. I mean, it could be that I missed something, but I did not see his name pop up. This game, we know, has not been in development for 10 years. It has been in development for before. But the idea of this world, these characters, of Versus 13 has been around since 13 was announced. And Nomura was attached to it then. He came up with the original concept and the characters. And part of me has to wonder how much of this is beholden to that original vision, how much, because we've talked before, like, about how the developers have seemed willing to adapt the story to their own vision, but at the same time they're still carting around Luna, who is a revision slash that they replaced Stella from Versus 13 with Luna. And Stella, while we knew nothing about her, our one glimpse of her was her getting ready to throw down with Noctis, like they were going to fight.
Oh,
and they had the party scene from the early verse, except the context is completely rejiggered, so it focuses on Regis and the Emperor talking, and then Luna comes up to Nyx and is like, "We're in." And I don't know. Part of me is just like, I don't know. The glimpse of Stella we've seen is more compelling than anything we've seen of Luna so far. And I just got to wonder if her role in the story isn't part they didn't know what to do with her. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I went on.
No, I feel like Luna, in terms of looks and function to the story, is Namine from Kingdom Hearts.
Yep.
Fair enough.
MacGuffin lady. Like, they look the same. They get captured constantly, and they are MacGuffins for people to rescue.
So give us a Shion who's actually awesome. Like,
I do have to go there though, but I love the way Luna dresses up in game and in the movie.
No, yeah, the design is great. Like the costuming and stuff is great.
She looks. I want her earrings really bad.
It's Square. I'm sure you'll be able to buy them.
I was gonna say, check the Square Enix store like tomorrow.
I'm still trying to buy the Yuna necklace. That thing goes out of stock like as soon as it's back in. I digress.
I've wanted to buy the lightning necklace, but money.
I think you can already buy like
To buy
Noctis'
the
jacket.
Encyclopedia Eorzea, but apparently Square Enix forgot that 6 million people play their video game.
Oh, I bought mine.
Yeah.
It's on the way.
Oh wow.
But yeah,
I
that's.
really wish they do like cohesive art books too. They don't really do anything proper for that.
But we're getting off track here, I think.
Yeah.
Well, like I
So-
said, I don't know if there's any dirt on Nomura not being in the credits, but I just think it's weird.
Yeah, that's true. That is weird.
If it's like at least like
These special
original concept or something like that.
I just don't know. I don't know what the behind the scenes stuff is. They've been pretty mum on a lot of it, but I'd be really curious to know like if he like I don't know if Nomura pissed somebody off at Square for like taking so long. Don't know.
Or
Don't know.
someone, but
Yeah, it's complete speculation on my part. Yeah, it's neither here nor there.
No, I agree. I'm no good at speculation talk.
Yeah,
Very weird. You're right. If he came up with the original concept, if he's not even in the special thanks, that does seem a bit fishy.
they think Afrojack,
Well,
the
I
guy
feel like
who did the dubstep song in the E3 trailer.
Well, I feel like part of it is that the costumes are not designed by Nomura. Nomura basically drew their faces, and I mean, they're all just sort of mix and match, paint by numbers, anime pretty boys with Roberto Ferrari costumes.
I
mean, fair
love
enough.
the look of the cast in this movie. Again, I actually think I'm part of the party who thinks, or part of the people who think the movie characters look a bit better than the in-game ones.
Oh no, I completely agree. The movie
well,
characters have like
technically,
interesting costuming. But like I think the reason Nomura's not credited is because like the story concept for the characters is no longer his and the costuming never was his, so it's essentially just like the character Noctis
Yeah, really.
as like a notion was credited by him.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough, and like we don't really, as that's the thing. There's just so much we don't really know that it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, plus they'd have to credit the guy from Naruto who wrote Sasuke because Noctis is just, angsty Sasuke, which should
How
create
do
a
you make
singularity.
Sasuke angstier?
The notion of angsty Sasuke should create a singularity and just annihilate us all.
It's like dividing by zero.
Yeah.
It turns out that in the black hole you can in fact divide by zero. All right, well, I guess we're kind of have reached the bottom of our list of topics, but I guess just to go around closing thoughts, are we more for Final Fantasy 15 after watching Kingsglaive.
Yes.
How would you rank it among FF movies? There aren't many of them.
I actually do think I thought it was actually pretty good. Like, I went in with what I expected from it and came out pleasantly surprised. They did a lot to kind of make it still a very modern Final Fantasy world where you had, like, the cameo monsters, but I like that they had, like, a Chocobo cleaning service or, like, a little Marl, or the stupid deadly gas monster in a cartoon.
Marlboro.
Like, it was little stuff like that I thought, well, yeah, Marlboro, that was, that was really cool. The sort of realistic-ish fights, like, I like that, when Noctis fell too far, he actually hurt his leg, as opposed to Advent Children where they're just jumping around like it's nothing. So I actually like that fights, felt like they actually had a weight to them, even though they weren't really constrained either, where they could still, make pretty radical jumps and, pretty divine feats of strength. So I thought it was a perfectly entertaining film. It's got its hiccups, but whatever. I'm more excited for Final Fantasy 15 now. They got me.
I'm still frustrated. I think the concept of the film is the best out of the 3 CG Final Fantasy films, but overall, I'm going to be weird and say I think overall I still enjoyed Spirits Within more.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Like, I don't want to watch Advent Children ever again, so that's probably still my least favorite at this point. But I don't know.
If one of these days we're going to do the Advent Children drinking game, and it's going to be glorious.
Oh, that would be a fun podcast to do.
Oh, so I'm going to pass out on the show? Is that what you
Every
mean?
time they say mother, take a drink. It's like 50-something times.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is we've got 3 films, 2 of which are tie-ins to games, either, a sequel-ish tie-in or a prequel-ish tie-in. And Spirits Within is the only one that technically stands on its own, which may be part of the reason why I'm partial to it, even though it's problematic, it fails a lot too, but at least it doesn't necessarily feel to me like I watched a, well, in my case, $6 tie-in product placement thing,
Yeah, did you know Uniqlo is in the Final Fantasy universe? And Audis?
Beats by Dre.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there was a Beats by Dre, yeah.
So,
You too can pay more for headphones that are not high quality.
Spirits Within is an interesting case. Like, I mean, at the very least, you could say that they tried with that one, and it did pioneer some new, like, filmmaking technology. Plus, it has James Woods.
Yes.
And Donald Sutherland.
I cannot.
Yeah,
and Ming-Na Wen. Hello.
See, Square Enix.
Kidding.
Spirits Within had celebrity voice cast before it was cool.
Ming-Na Wen is red. Although I found out some stuff about James Woods recently that makes me not like him anymore. Sadly.
I've done that too, but I will pretend that he's just Hades, and I will ignore his.
That actually works.
Persona.
What happened to James Woods?
It's been a bad week for me on that front. But
We should discuss it after the show.
Yeah. So, Steven, got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I liked it. I do not think it was perfect by any means. I probably won't watch it again. I've watched it twice now in both languages. It got me more interested in the game, but I can't say if that's due to the fact that it was a good introduction to the world or because it set up so many plot threads that I'm just like, ugh, what's going to happen? So it could be a little bit of both. I like the art design, love the music. It made me more hopeless than ever that the game is going to have a particularly nuanced portrayal of anyone other than its 4 leads. But who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. But in any case, yeah, I think between that and the recent footage of the final version makes the game look pretty solid. So I think at very least it'll be entertaining. So I liked Kingsglaive. I did not adore it. But I doubt I would watch it again.
Fair.
That's fair enough. And I mean, I liked it. I would rank it above the other FF movies, and I've seen Advent Children more times than I should probably admit on air.
How many?
We're not getting into this. It's a good thing to break out at parties sometimes.
Sorry.
But Honestly, so I think that'll about do it for our Kingsglaive podcast. And thank you everyone for coming on board. This was kind of a hassle to set up a bit, and this is my first time hosting, so be gentle, please.
You did it. It was fun.
And yeah, it's fun talking about the movie. And as always, you can email us at retro@rpgfan.com. We always please comment on the boards and let us know what you thought of Kingsglaive, because we pay attention to those. We take feedback. We'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. Do you want to plug your guys' social media real quick, like your Twitters? At I Have Fury, same as my forum username.
I am at Leanne_Kazerl, also same as my forum name.
I'm online.
Am I on the internet?
Stephanie's our social media person, so you hear from her a lot.
I'm your social media person, yeah, so you'll probably hear from me responding to you about this podcast.
You can reach her at RPGFan.com.
And Steven doesn't write for us anymore, but we like to keep him around.
Yeah, you can find me SJMTaylor on Twitter. Also my website. Also, yeah. So that's me. I translate video games, so you can ask me about that, or you can hear me retweet music.
Lots of retweeting music.
Yeah, lots of retweeting music and lots of yelling at political debates. So if you don't like politics, don't show up in my Twitter feed and tell me why you're talking about politics, because I will block you so fast.
Yeah, the same goes for me.
I just don't care. If you don't want to hear about politics, don't follow me.
Don't. I didn't even get into. I'm not going to bring up a whole topic of conversation, but there was some weird political undercurrents in Kingsglaive that were weird. But anyway, that'll about do it. As always, remember, rate us on iTunes, and keep an eye out for future episodes. We got a Child of the Light episode coming out, so we will keep you posted, and we'll see you all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.